These are the best build-around rares in Edge of Eternities draft, and this is coming from a not professional Magic player who's been to Mythic every single season for the last 2 years in multiple accounts.
And just ignore whatever 17 lands data says about the win rates of these cards, because trust me, these cards are broken when you build around them, so they're totally worth pack one, pick one-ing. When you need to build around something in general, you need to make sure that you have between 10 and 12 triggers for whatever that card requires in your deck. So in the case of Pinnacle Emissary, you obviously want artifacts in your deck, right? But you're going to want 10 to 12 in order for this to be effective. Now, the first one you probably already know or have heard of is Sunset Saboteur. This is the 2-drop that is a 4/1 menace with ward, discard a card, but the downside is that it gives your opponent a +1/+1 counter on one of their creatures. Now, you do get to choose which creature to put it on, and this already has a good win rate on 17 lands, but you're probably not knowing how to use it correctly, and basically you need to take a bunch of removal and have a really low curve. You're obviously going to take all of the good black removal spells that you can see at common and uncommon, and honestly this card pairs with every single color pair. Even blue, which is not supposed to be an aggressive color pair, it's more controlling, but it's actually really broken. If you can cryo shatter something and then put a +1/+1 counter on it, because it's not even going to matter that it gets the counter because it won't even be able to attack. But let me talk about some of the black cards that pair really nicely with this that you may not even be thinking of. And obviously any combat trick in any of the colors is going to do great. So this can actually make Dark Endurance kind of a good card for once. But I also love this card with Hilderblade, because all you have to do is trigger Void one time and then it starts a snowball effect. And then Father's Faithful is also really interesting here, because you may not think about it's a good idea to blow up your opponent's creature and give them 2 cards, right? But it doesn't matter if they're dead. Perigee Beckoner is also really great because it's kind of like a combat trick and a creature, so it pressures them some more and allows you to get a bigger attack in. The next really busted rare that we should build around is Adagia, I think is how you pronounce it. It's the white mythic land, and you have to station it for 12 counters, but then you get to create a legendary token copy of an artifact or enchantment. So obviously in white, this is going to be great because you can copy Banishing Light. Now keep in mind it is legendary, so you can only do it one time, or it'll just replace the last copy of the legendary artifact or enchantment that you make. But it's also really good with vehicles. If you are lucky enough to get this rare Lumen Class Frigate, now obviously this card's just good on its own, so you should definitely pack one, pick one this, but making a copy of it is super broken. I did that in the pre-release. Banishing Light, obviously. Now Rescue Skiff is a really cool combo with Adagia, because you basically can infinitely loop your creatures over and over again from the graveyard, and then depending on what you pair it with, you can pair it with blue, so you can copy Cryo Shatters, which is really busted, Cryogen Relics, you can keep drawing multiple cards, Tractor Beam. Oh, and I should point out that with Cryogen Relic, when you do make the legendary copy of it, you'll sacrifice the original other legendary copy of it, triggering the ability for you to draw a card again, so you don't even need to spend 2 mana to get rid of this card. And then if you're in the other colors, Virus Beetle is pretty cool. Any of the spacecrafts with really good ETBs, like this Dirge Craft, which normally is not that great, is really good because it's a recurring removing spell every single turn, because even if you sacrifice the other legendary version, you only care about the ETB anyways. And then the colorless cards, right? Nutrient Block is great. Pinnacle Kill Ship is just a free removal spell every single turn, and you can just keep looping them over and over again. Sticking with white, let's talk about Halia next. Now, when I first read this card and when I first started playing this set for Edge of Eternities, I actually thought this rare was really bad. But then I looked at the win rate on 17 lands, and it's actually pretty high. And that got me thinking and realizing that maybe I'm just not building around it enough, and I don't actually know how to make this card good. Now, obviously, you need to have multiple things enter the battlefield all in the same turn, but there's not a lot of token generators in this set in general, other than the 4-drop in white that makes a 1/1. But 2 things are going on with this card, which just makes it so good, and that's that the life gain that occurs every single turn is really hard for your opponent to keep up with, even if you're not drawing a card. And by the way, whenever I'm referencing cards that you'll need to draft in order to make these rares actually work, I'm not referencing any of the mythics or rares, because the odds of you actually getting this build-around rare and the other mythic is very unlikely. So that's why I'm not talking about those, and a lot of those are just obviously synergistic with this card. Like, for example, Cosmo Grand Zenith. Obviously, it'll make 2 1/1 tokens, which will help you trigger Halia, but what are the odds that you get this mythic and rare in the same draft? Not very likely. But if you are in blue-white, it can easily trigger this every single turn because you play your second spell. Hopefully it's a creature. Then you get this 1/1, and then that easily triggers Halia and lets you draw a card. If you get Thrumming Hive Pool, also that one double triggers. But Radiant Strike is the card that I didn't realize automatically triggers this card once you kill something, which is so broken. You kill an artifact, a spacecraft, or their creature that's attacking you, and then you draw a card. That's just busted. And this is the 4-drop I was talking about that makes multiple bodies. If they can crew and activate Fell Graveship, this has flying and lifelink for exactly 3 damage, so they'll gain exactly 3 life and then draw a card. So if you are in black-white, definitely look out for the Graveship as well. Next, let's talk about Esteli Reclaimer. Now, for those of you who have read this card for the first time, if you have really good card evaluation skills, you would have read this card and realized it's terrible. It's a 5 mana, 5/4 that literally does nothing because it can only return a non-creature, non-land permanent from the graveyard to the battlefield. And this is not an artifact heavy set. This is not an enchantment heavy set. So there's not a lot of good targets for this to go and get. But it's actually really busted in blue-white and black-white. So blue-white especially because Cryo Shatter, this gets this back with the warp effect alone. Same with Cryogen Relic. So you put a Cryo Shatter on their creature, they block with it because they know it's going to die anyways. This goes to the graveyard, and then you bring it back for free with the warp cost. Same thing with Cryogen Relic, you get that for free. Obviously, you can get a Banishing Light back if they somehow have a way to kill this. But Tractor Beam, when you full cost play this for 5 mana, you can bring a Tractor Beam back. And that is such a broken play. I've done that a couple times. And one thing that is not too intuitive that you may not think about is Embrace Oblivion. So if you're in black-white, you can actually leverage the sacrifice an artifact part of this card to your advantage. So you could sacrifice your Cryogen Relic or even your Hilderblade or some type of equipment, right? You can sacrifice that for the cost for Embrace to Oblivion, knowing that you'll just be able to get it back later with Esteli Reclaimer. Same thing with Dubious Delicacy. You can get this back after you've dealt 3 damage to your opponent, and then you can -3/-3 something else. Obviously, you can get back Nutrient Block as well and draw a card. You can also, when you are in black-white, when you have the auxiliary boosters, you can sack the booster, and then when you full cost play the Reclaimer, it'll bring the booster back from the graveyard. Next, we need to talk about Requiem Monolith, and I actually thought this card was always busted from the very beginning when I first read it, but the data on 17 lands is actually pretty bad, but I think it's just because people aren't building around it and using it in the right way. So this is the 3 mana rare black artifact where you can tap it and deal 1 damage to your own creature, and then you'll draw a card equal to the number of damage that was dealt to it this turn. So you can do damage to it before combat, draw a card, for lose 1 life, then attack with it, and then if they block and kill it, you'll draw cards equal to the amount of damage they did to that creature, and then you'll take the damage equal to how many cards you draw. Now, you can also use this as a way to end the game by targeting your opponent's creature. So if you're playing green-black or red-black, you can deal damage to that creature after you've targeted it with the Monolith's effect, and you can do 6 damage up to, or maybe even bigger, and then that's a great way to finish off your opponent. Because again, even if they draw 6 cards, doesn't matter if the game is over. So when you have this card, obviously you're going to want to avoid all the creatures that have 1 toughness, even though Hull Carver is a very good card. Virus Beetle, also a good card, although this one's not the worst because you make them discard a card and then you lose a life and draw a card. And the Comet Crawler, which normally is a bad card, which I would recommend you never draft, is actually one you're going to need because you don't want to kill yourself with the Monolith, and this is one of the only black cards that have lifelink other than the Graveship. But some really good cards to pair it with. Almost all the removal spells in red, like Plasma Bolt, Invasive Maneuvers, Bombard deals 4 damage to their face. But one of the best red commons, which everyone knows is already a good card, is Orbital Plunge, and this is guaranteed 6 damage to your opponent's face at common. And then if you're playing green, you can just use Diplomatic Relations on one of your big green 5/5s or 4/4s and deal 5 or 6 damage to their face with this card as well. And just in general, the Monolith pairs really good with green overall because the creatures are so big that they're gonna have to block it, otherwise they're gonna die. So you can do it pre-combat, deal 1 damage to your Ice Cave Crasher, lose a life, draw a card, then attack with your 4/4 or 5/4 Trample, and they're gonna have to block it at some point, and if they want to block and kill it, then you'll draw 4 more cards. So to summarize, it's a great draw engine and a win condition. Next is Terry Symbiosis, and I actually thought this was one of the worst cards in the whole set that was made for like Commander or some other 60 card format, but actually this card is really busted if you pair it with green-white. Now it's only good in green-white because that's the only color pair that has the counters, and this is a true hard build around, but green-white is not that popular of a color pair right now, and a lot of the cards that make this good are ones that other archetypes don't really want. Definitely going to want Broodguard Elite for sure. This is going to draw you like 5 or 6 cards times 2, so like 10 cards. Notably, it doesn't combo very well with the greenhouse because this only looks at 1 creature, so you're only going to draw 1 card, but still pretty good. Every time you play a land with the Argarian, which is already a really good card, you just get to draw a card on top of that. The Drix Fate Maker at common is a great way to trigger this twice in green. And you're going to want to get your hand on as many Dockworker drones as you possibly can if you have Terry Symbiosis. This is not only just one of the best white commons, because you just get to move the counters around and they're super annoying to deal with and kill, but when they enter, you draw a card, and then when they die, you also draw a card. Now, with Pinnacle Emissary, as I covered in the beginning of the video, you want 10 to 12 artifacts. And you can also splash Grixis, because black has a lot of good artifacts in it as well. So I do recommend prioritizing the colorless 3-mana rock that gives you mana of any color. The All Fate Scroll is really good with the Emissary. Next, let's talk about Tanuk, the Mythic red rare that gives all your red creatures, notably, and artifacts warp for 3. Now, why this card is so good is because warp allows you to not only cheat in your creatures with haste to attack with stuff, but it also lets you trigger ETBs 2 times, which is the part that a lot of people overlook. The other thing that people don't think about is that it's only red creatures that you can warp and artifacts, so you're going to want to be super heavy red. Tanuk is the kind of card you want like a 10-7 mana base to build around, so probably 15, 14 of your cards should be red, and everything else should either be an artifact or your secondary support color. Now, obviously, you're going to want to take some of the more expensive red cards that you can cheat out for 3 mana for free, and it actually makes this Debris Field Crusher, which is normally a really bad card, kind of decent, because you get 2 3-damage ETBs, which is pretty good. But you're also going to want to take commons really highly, like Pinnacle Killship, and this plus this is super busted. By the way, the Monoist Circuit Feeder is also an artifact, and if you can get this out on turn 4 with like another artifact, you can -2/-2 something and then pump something and attack, and then you get to do it again later. And another really good common to get out with this for free is Mechanozoa. You bring it in, you stun their defender, and then you smash them for 5+3, which is 8. It's pretty brutal. Next, this is one of my favorite rares in the whole set to build around, and that's Starfield Vocalist. Again, super bad win rate on 17 lands, but you need to build around it and be strategic. Almost every card these days in Limited Magic has an ETB, and that's what this thing basically gets to double. It's super busted with All Fate Stalker and Banishing Light, because you get 2 things that you get to exile and take away. Codecracker Hound will trigger 2 times. With Selfcraft Mechan, you do get to sack 2 things, put 2 counters, and draw 2 cards. Now, you do actually need to have 2 sacrificable artifacts for this, so that's why it's not always that great, but still pretty cool. And also with you Social Engineering, it makes 2 2/2 artifact creatures every time you trigger landfall. And I've seen someone draft blue-green with this and take the Glacier Godmaw plus the Starfield Vocalist, and every time you landfall, your whole board gets +2/+2 and Vigilance, and so it's basically just game over. Now, the last really cool build-around rare is Starwinder. Also kind of a decent win rate, but not something super impressive, but you need to be strategic as to what you draft and how to build this. So you're going to want to take every single creature that has evasion. If you just look at these 3 blue commons here, all of which are really bad and you should almost never ever play, these cards are going to be super good when you have Starwinder. And these are going to be cards that you're going to get for free, because these are almost always last pickable, because no one ever wants these and the win rates are terrible. But if you have flying, if you curve out like this, 1, 2, 3, and then you play Starwinder on 4 with the warp cost, you're going to draw 3 cards right off the bat, and your opponent's going to be set way behind. Oh, and if you want to see me play with some of these rares and build around them, I'm doing a challenge where I'm trying to go from bronze to mythic on a brand new account in just 24 hours. So go ahead and check that out as well. I'm going to put that up on the screen right now. If you think there's a rare or mythic that I missed that's a really cool build around that's a little bit tricky, put it down in the comments, and then I can always make another video and update it to see how you can leverage some of these really cool and awesome rares in draft. Thank you all for watching.